Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an anti-meta core that helped me go 16-4 today, climbing from the lower 2700s to the upper 2800s. The core consists of Guzzlord and Skeledirge. Guzzlord is an amazing core breaker, destroying the common grass types, water types, and ghost types that you'll see in the meta, and Skeledirge is able to handle the steel types and the fairies that Guzzlord doesn't want to see. This core does have some weaknesses. Azumarill, Carbink, and Bastiodon, all very tough for this team, but even so, I did have a lot of success with it today. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's go Guzzlord. Hopping into the first match, we're already off to an amazing start, leading Guzzlord into Lantern, and the opponent is staying in what is a truly terrible matchup, so it looks like they are weak to Guzzlord in the back as well. I go for the Dragon Claw, that connects, and the Dragon Tail plus Dragon Claw damage is adding up so much onto the Lantern. Lantern goes for the Thunderbolt, they save switch into Superior, which again is a Pokemon that is weak to Guzzlord. I'm actually going to save the Guzzlord for later and send in the Skeledirge. As you may notice, on the graphic, I have Shadow Ball listed, but for these first few battles, I'm running Flamethrower. Unfortunately, I'm very low on TMs at the moment, so I tried to run it with Flamethrower, ended up needing Shadow Ball, so about halfway through, I switched to Shadow Ball, but it cost 2/3 of the TMs that I had at the moment, so unfortunately, I am now down to 3 charged TMs at the time of recording. I'm able to grab a shield with the Disarming Voice from the Lantern. Lantern is going to be forced to go for the Surf, and I can just send back in the Guzzlord. Guzzlord going for the Dragon Claw. This will not KO, but it will get the Lantern extremely low. Lantern is going to switch out. In the back, opponent is running Shadow Venusaur, and right away in the first game, we see the power of Guzzlord. Opponent running a team that is triple weak to Guzzlord. They have absolutely no answers. I'm farming up to the back-to-back Dragon Claws here. Dragon Claw number 1 is going to get the shield from the Venusaur, and I go for Dragon Claw number 2. This will get the KO on the Venusaur. All that's left in the back is the 1 HP Lantern, and that's a good game. Moving into the next match, leading Guzzlord into Alolan Ninetales. A bad lead. I'm going to save switch into Lickitung. My opponent is going to stay in the matchup with the Ninetales, and they're going to fire off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to connect. My opponent now sends in a Water Gun Lantern, so my opponent running a team soft to Lickitung, and I am more than happy with that. I go for the Power Whip. I'm able to grab an early shield from my opponent. If possible, I do want to try and get this Lantern into a farm down range for the Guzzlord, so I do actually decide to commit a shield here. I do want to get some damage off on the Lantern. Lantern is going to be firing off the Surf. Surf will connect. And my Lickitung, I should be able to make it to a Power Whip plus a Body Slam, which is really nice, as that is going to guarantee either switch advantage or their final shield. And my Lickitung is able to hang on and make it to the last second Body Slam. That is amazing, and I'm able to grab the final shield. This is perfect. I've now set up the Skeledirge to sweep in the back, and on top of that, the Lickitung was able to bait out their water type in the Lantern. Lantern goes for the Thunderbolt, that's fine by me. In comes the Ninetales, I send in Skeledirge in the back. They have Shadow Gligar, and up a shield, Skeledirge will be able to close this game. Flamethrower does big damage to the Gligar. Gligar continues to farm. They're firing off the charge move here, but the Incinerate that went through will get the KO here, so I can just shield up the dig. Back in comes the Alolan Ninetales, and the opponent concedes the match. We see a tough lead in the next match, Guzzlord into Medicham. I'm going to save switch into Lickitung here. Lickitung can do pretty well into Medicham. If Medicham is not running a fighting type charge move, Lickitung is able to win the Zero Shield. I fire off the Body Slam. My opponent commits an early shield here, okay? I actually decide to shield back. It doesn't seem like they have a great counter to Lickitung, and they don't. They're going to send in Tentacruel. Very good to bait this out, as this would absolutely crush my Skeledirge in the back. I go for the Body Slam. That's going to connect onto the Tentacruel. Tentacruel does not want to take any additional damage, so they're going to fire off the Scald to deny me that opportunity. But now I can go for farm on the Guzzlord. Guzzlord continuing to farm. Guzzlord is going to be hit with the charge move here. Do they go for the Scald? No, they go for the Acid Spray. Guzzlord looking for the farm down. Opponent gets the new mechanic, and they make the last second charge move. That's extremely unfortunate, as now I am quad debuffed. If they didn't get the new mechanic there, I was going to stay in with the Guzzlord and pressure the Medicham with crunches, but since I was quad debuffed, I'm forced to switch out, and now I'm in an endgame Skeledirge versus the Gligar. And unfortunately, this is shield parity. At shield parity, I'm in trouble here, because they are going to be able to make the double dig before I can make it to the Flamethrower there, just 2 turns away from the Flamethrower, but the dig will secure the knockout onto the Skeledirge, and I resign the match. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, Guzzlord into Defense Deoxys. Now you may be wondering, Henry, you're leading Guzzlord into a counter user, how is this a positive lead? Well, Guzzlord has a massive HP stat, and on top of that, it resists the charge moves from the Deoxys. Psycho Boost, of course, is extremely resisted due to the Dark typing, and the Dragon typing is going to resist the Thunderbolt. So even though they're a counter user, Guzzlord actually wins the Zero Shield here, and with Switch Advantage, I should be in a pretty nice spot. Opponent sends in the Ninetales, they snipe me before I make the crunch, but I can send in the Skeledirge. It's a battle of Lickitungs in the back. Opponent recognizes they do not have a win con, and they resign the match. We see one of the core breakers for the team in the next match, leading Guzzlord into Bastiodon. I'm going to save switch into Lickitung, and my opponent is staying in this matchup. I continue to farm, I'm going for the Power Whip, trying to throw it a turn before they get to the move, but unfortunately it ends up being a CMP tie, and that's just a really risky thing to have happen. Ideally, I'm trying to throw one lick beforehand, but unfortunately there's been a lot of just stutter and inconsistency when it comes to timing charge moves as of late. As you're going to see, I'm going to try it again, and again it's CMP tie. Very, very unfortunate there. Luckily, they're throwing as soon as they get their charge moves here, but unfortunately, this is still not a great Pokemon for my team to see. I'm going to send back in the Guzzlord. I'm going to be throwing 7 Dragon Tails and going for the Crunch. They are in the red. I'm just hoping that this Crunch is going to be enough to KO here. I'm firing off the Crunch. Crunch into the Bastiodon, barely does not KO, and they're going to make it to the last second Stone Edge there. That is unfortunate. Guzzlord is going to get the farm down. What do they have in back? Is it going to be a Medicham? Opponent sends in a Drifblim. That is not what I was expecting to see whatsoever. I'm not baiting here. I'm firing off the Crunch into the Drifblim. Drifblim commits the shield. I do get the defense debuff. They're going to be firing off an Icy Wind. I'm committing the shield. I want to try and get shields down so I can potentially set up a Flamethrower. Unfortunately, I am still on Flamethrower for this battle. Shadow Ball would be nice. I get the final shield. I send in Skeledirge. They're running a double ghost strategy. It's the Trevenant in the back, and Trevenant is about to get cooked. Flamethrower from the Skeledirge erases the Trevenant, and this game will come down to a bait call. They have enough for the Shadow Ball. I let it through. It's the Icy Wind bait, and that's game over for the opponent. They can make another Icy Wind, but I'm just going to commit the shield and under-tap the Flamethrower here. Flamethrower is double debuff due to those 2 Icy Winds, but it's not going to matter. Skeledirge gets the KO, and against all odds, we beat a Bastiodon lead. Guzzlord sees a great lead in the next match, leading into Greninja. Opponent save switches into a Charge-a-Bug, but this is not a good response to Guzzlord. Guzzlord still wins the 1 shield and the 2 shield here. Dragon Claw will connect. Now I can send in Skeledirge for a 1 shield farm down. Skeledirge, its energy is going to be extremely useful into the Greninja, as Disarming Voice will hit for massive super effective damage. So my play here is I'm going to tank 1, I'm going to shield the 2nd, I'm going to farm down, and I'm going to be able to make it 2 back-to-back Disarming Voices before Greninja can make a move. I'm at the back-to-back moves here. I will need to throw the moves back-to-back, so I will let an entire Water Shuriken for free, but if I go for good timing, then my opponent could outpace and deny my energy with a Night Slash. So I'm able to grab both shields from the Greninja. Greninja able to get the farm down, but now I can send in Guzzlord, and Guzzlord is just a wall to energy from Greninja. Greninja will fire off the Hydro Cannon. Guzzlord able to tank that perfectly fine, and Guzzlord, again, doesn't have to shield here. They can fire off these Hydro Cannons, and that is perfectly fine for Guzzlord. I'm firing off the Dragon Claw, because I just want to try and get rid of this thing. Dragon Claw gets it to 1 HP. Guzzlord will get the farm down in the back. It's Cresselia. I can send in the Lickitung, and the opponent resigns the match. We move into the next match, and Guzzlord picks up an amazing lead leading into Superior. Guzzlord is just such a good core breaker, and the Superior is forced to stay in. Even better. We tank Frenzy Plants for days here, so I can very comfortably let this go. Opponent goes for the Aerial Ace. In this matchup, as the Superior, you do want to go for the Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant is resisted, but it's an incredibly powerful move, and it does get same type attack bonus, whereas Aerial Ace does not. They've shielded once. I can still tank a move here. My opponent is just going straight Aerial Ace, which works out very nicely for me, and now I'm going for the harder hitting Crunch. This will not KO, but it will get Superior incredibly low. Superior making it to 1 final charge move here. If it's the Aerial Ace, which it is, I'm able to survive that and win the 0-1 shield. In comes Sableye, but Sableye is going to get absolutely shut down by Lickitung here. Lickitung just has to watch for a potential catch when I make it to the Power Whip. They're going to be firing off the charge move here. It's the foul play. That is perfectly fine. They go for a catch onto Shadow Alolan Sandslash. And look at Skeledirge absolutely feasting. Opponent's team was ABA weak to Skeledirge. Skeledirge absolutely destroys the poor Sandslash. Back in comes the Sableye. Disarming Voice will hit for big super effective damage. And Skeledirge secures the victory. Hopping into the next match, and we see a tough lead for Guzzlord as it leads into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. I save switch into Lickitung, and Lickitung can do quite well into Shadow Claw A-Slash. A-Slash is going to stay in this matchup for a little bit. They're going to fire off the Drill Run. Opponent now going to send in a Sableye. So it looks like the opponent's backline is core broken by the Guzzlord, so they're forced to actually switch out of the A-Slash versus Lickitung matchup because they need to keep that A-Slash alive to deal with the Guzzlord. But by doing so, they've now put their Sableye into a matchup that is not favorable for it whatsoever. Opponent shields the first Power Whip, but I'm able to make it to a second Power Whip, and this one will be no-shielded. Sableye continuing to overfarm. Opponent overfarms a bit too much. I make it to the double-resisted Body Slam, and they're low enough health that they actually have to respect this with a shield. So I am unfortunately unable to win switch advantage, but I get both of their shields. Now I can just send in the Guzzlord, absorb the foul play, and look for Skeledirge to close. Now the Sableye is out of the way. Opponent is going to be sending back in the A-Slash. In comes the A-Slash. I switch into Skeledirge. In the back, my opponent has a Spark Lantern. So basically, they have a hard counter for me waiting in the back, but I still win this game. This game's over. I just have to land the Shadow Ball and then not shield the Skeledirge. I can just let the Skeledirge go, and then I'm saving all my shields for the Guzzlord. Guzzlord is not threatened by anything from Lantern whatsoever. This is an absolute wall to Lantern. So all I have to do is just no-shield everything, fully commit to a Dragon Tail farm down, and make it to 2 crunches versus the A-Slash. Again, they make another move, but I do not care. These Shadow Claws are going to do nothing to the Guzzlord. Back in comes the A-Slash, and A-Slash is about to have a terrible day as a Dragon type is about to beat it for the win. Opponent makes it to a last-second Ice Punch. I will finally have to use one of my shields, but only the one. I get to save the next one unused as I make it to crunch number 2 and secure the win by knocking out the A-Slash. Moving into the next match, leading Guzzlord into Lickitung, an amazing lead for Guzzlord. Opponent save switches into Gligar. I'm farming up with the Guzzlord. Opponent just goes for the Aerial Ace right off the bat. So the opponent not building up to the dig. I'm going to stay in here with the Guzzlord, farm up a bunch of energy, and then send in my own Lickitung. Lickitung is going to be able to absorb the energy from the Gligar perfectly fine. Gligar goes for dig number 1. I continue to farm as they're still not in Body Slam range yet. They can make dig number 2. That's perfectly okay by me. And now I can go for the Body Slam. Body Slam will not KO here. Power Whip does more, but in this case, I can actually get some farm. And farm is very useful there. My opponent in the back has a Medicham. I didn't want to risk trying to go for a Power Whip and not get any damage, so I'm just going to go for the Body Slam. They get the farm down, I send in Skeledirge, they send in Lickitung, and I can bring back in the Guzzlord. The Guzzlord is below half health, but this is still a dominant matchup for Guzzlord, as Guzzlord is able to inflict a lot of pressure with the Dragon Tail Dragon Claw combination, and the Licks from my opponent do absolutely nothing. Lick is a pretty solid move if you're going up against a Pokemon that doesn't have a lot of HP, like Defense Deoxys, but Guzzlord has HP for days. I'm able to make it to the Dragon Claw. That's going to connect. I get the farm down. Medicham will farm down me, but at this point, my opponent doesn't really have a win con. I pretty comfortably tank a Psychic here, so I'm just going to no-shield. I can tank this. Opponent goes for the Ice Punch bait, and yeah, it was already over. Now it is absolutely over, as I can just make it to 3 Disarming Voices. Opponent will commit the shield. At this health range, I will start shielding. They're probably just going to keep Ice Punching me, but at this point, I'm in a really comfortable spot. I should now be 1 Incinerate away from the game-winning Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice gets the shield, and I make it to Disarming Voice number 3. Let's go, Skeledirge. Skeledirge KOs that Medicham, and that's a good game. Hopping into the final match, and we see same leads as last game. We see Guzzlord into Lickitung. Opponent save switches into a Surfetched. Surfetched, a pretty cool pick, but the opponent ends up firing off their charge move on alignment, and I get an entire Incinerate for free. I'm going for this Disarming Voice as soon as I get it. Looking to put some pressure onto the Surfetch'd. Surfetch'd is going to let that through. Lickitung will get a pretty big farm down, but the nice thing is I get some chip damage with the Disarming Voice, and my opponent's switch timer is not going to be up yet. So I'm going to send in the Guzzlord right away. There's switch lock, so I am not waiting my clock here. I'm just going to send back in the Guzzlord, as Guzzlord, as we've seen, does extremely well in this matchup. Guzzlord continuing to farm, opponent firing off Body Slam after Body Slam, and that's perfectly fine by me. I can just continue to farm up with the Guzzlord to the back-to-back Dragon Claws, and at this point, a Dragon Claw should be lethal to the Lickitung. Lickitung lets it go, they get KO'd. In the back, it's a Shadow Venusaur, and again, Guzzlord just has teams in absolute shambles, and you love to see it. Guzzlord can't make that Dragon Claw as I do not get new mechanic. That's very unfortunate, but either way, I still have the game won because my opponent is going to have to land 4 Frenzy Plants here. 2, obviously, to get the damage to get the KO, and then 2 more for the shields, and they just can't make it to 4 Frenzies before I make it to 2 Body Slams. So I'm going for Body Slam number 1 here into the Venusaur. Venusaur commits the shield, recognizes there is no longer a win con, and they resign the match. All in all, while I did have a ton of success with this team, I would say that this team and its success can definitely depend on the ELO bracket that you're in. If you're in an ELO range where you're seeing a ton of Azumarill and Tapu Fini, I would not recommend running this team, as this team absolutely hates both of those Pokemon. I haven't really seen any Azumarill in Great League for a while, which is pretty nice for me, because this way I can afford to run a team that's pretty weak to it. But all in all, I had a really fun day of battles. It's really fun getting to run a team where 2 of the 3 are definitely not Pokemon that you see commonly, and having some very nice results as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.